the U.S. government to send a team here to begin drafting a withdrawal plan. U.S. commanders that we speak with say they have not received any new mission. They're basically, it's still business as usual, although suspended. And by that, it means they still have the mission. They have not been told to begin a withdrawal, but they've basically suspended their operations. They're not training, they're not helping Iraqis fight ISIS, but there are still 1,500 troops here on this base, and what they're doing, we're told, is protecting the base and doing a lot of drills.
And what do you hear from Iraqis about the prospect of the United States leaving, if that becomes, something that actually might happen?
So Iraq now is really polarized. There's the Iranian-backed militias, which basically we've seen control a large part of the security forces. And the thing is, the militias are intertwined with parliament, with political parties. That's the main driving force for American forces to leave, and the Prime Minister is caught in the middle. But, for instance, when I go down to Tahrir Square, where there's been anti-government protests since October, a lot of young Iraqis in particular tell me they want Americans to stay. They want good relations with Iran, they want good relations with America, and some of them go further and say they believe that the fact that American forces are still in Iraq means that they're protected somewhat from these militias that are trying to kill them. That probably is not true, but it does give them a certain comfort that U.S. forces are here, a lot of them tell me.
NPR's Jane Arraf speaking to us from Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq this morning. Jane, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cities in the American West are trying to deal with homeless encampments that are getting bigger and more visible. They remind some people of Hoovervilles, where hundreds of thousands of Americans lived during the Great Depression. Now, California has the highest number of tent cities. NPR's Eric Westervelt went to one, and he brought us back this.
Santa Rosa's sprawling tent and tarp village has frustrated and divided residents, sparked a recall effort, and heated debates over poverty and inequality in Sonoma County's wine country.
Well, they call me Cowboy, but my name is Charles Gibson, and I'm living on the trail here.
Wiry, frenzied, with a few missing teeth, Gibson got his nickname, he says, because he always cowboys up for other people, despite the hardships of life among broken pallets and soggy tents. This massive camp isn't hidden in the woods. It's right on a popular biking and jogging path. Gibson and some 200 others have been living for months in a grassy drainage ditch that straddles the path and Highway 12, a main commuter artery into the city. Gibson concedes the camp has serious problems: garbage, rats, inadequate toilets, and some drug use. But he says it has a sense of community.
It's a struggle for anybody to keep warm and keep your heart and head light and strong. Doing the best I can, and it's very hard,
Gibson pushes a shopping cart towards his tenuous patch of grass. At the tent next to his, an older woman pops her head out, shouting obscenities at no one in particular.
People need to open up their eyes and realize they could end up like this. And a lot of people are one check away.
Homelessness is a nationwide problem, but it's particularly severe here in California. A new federal HUD report estimates the state has more than 150,000 homeless, including those in shelters. Overall, the state has more than half of all unsheltered homeless in the nation, meaning those living outdoors. Given the growing disaster, Governor Gavin Newsom has just proposed more than $1.4 billion in his new budget for state and local efforts on immediate housing and services. He's also ordered state agencies to do more to help find temporary sites, including decommissioned hospitals or unused land for the state's expanding homeless encampments.
I never thought that I would drive past a mile-long shanty town on my way to work. And if that's the reality that we're facing right now in Sonoma County.
That's County Supervisor Linda Hopkins, whose district includes the homeless camp.
There's just no room for error right now. There's no safety net. In my opinion, it just showcases the failure of government at all levels to meaningfully have a safety net for human beings.
The first-term politician is now facing blowback from those failures. A few angry constituents are working to recall her. Their petition says she's failed to act and calls the homeless encampment a public cesspool that's ruining businesses and homes. In fact, Hopkins has helped lead efforts to find solutions, including emergency funds, to a complex problem that cuts across issues: addiction, mental health treatment, rising housing costs, stagnant wages, and poverty. Complicating attempts to find a solution here include a local injunction and a federal court ruling. They hold that homeless people have a right to camp on public property if local governments can't provide adequate shelter beds and services, things Hopkins says the county can't afford on its own.
So how can we provide alternatives when we don't have enough money from the state or federal government to actually provide adequate mental health services, to actually provide adequate housing and shelter for these human beings?
Hopkins and other politicians here are promising to relocate the camp, likely to a parking lot near the airport, within weeks while they design a more permanent housing strategy. That lasting fix could take 2 years or more. And a new group of concerned citizens here says that's unacceptable. They're asking, if we can all pull together for each other during a wildfire crisis, why not a homeless crisis?
We know how to do this. We know how to take care of people. We've just seen it recently with the Kincaid fire.
Marcos Ramirez is a founder of the Squeaky Wheel Bicycle Coalition. It's a volunteer group of regular folks, artists, designers, a beekeeper, an architect. They're trying to break the familiar pattern of outrage, hand-wringing, and wrangling.
If we can organize shelter support, huge amounts of response, emergency services, and these kinds of things, there's no reason why we can't do this for our unhoused neighbors. It's the middle of winter, and things are only getting colder. There's no excuse for this.
The group has drawn up detailed proposals. One is to retrofit an unused section of the county's fairgrounds into a more permanent camp with on-site support, counseling, and job services. And they hope to inspire the formation of more squeaky wheel coalitions in cities across California facing the same kind of homeless camp crisis. Eric Westervelt, NPR News, Santa Rosa.
This is NPR News.
Good morning. This is Morning Edition. It's 8:19. I'm Jennifer Lynn. New research is showing that training for a marathon, even for slow runners, can dramatically improve heart health.
What we found is that we're able to revert normal aging process.
Coming up, more on a study of first-time marathon runners. It's coming up to 22 this morning. Elton Albright brings us that information. Maybe you are a runner, so you'll find that interesting, or even if you're not, but not a bad day for running. I think runners have been out in full force with this mild weather spell that we're having. Cloudy skies today, and we continue on the mild side. 52 for the high, not as warm as it has been, but pretty gentle for January.
I'll check where you guys are running. We'll have one later. First to open us to also, U.S. Senator Chris Coons joined us to talk about President Trump's impeachment trial. Radio Times at 10 on WHYY.
Supporting WHYY's the Tony and Randy Wolverine Broadway musical The Band of Music. In this fish out of water comedy set in a town off the beaten path, a band of lost musicians and a group of locals celebrate music. From the people's visit can stay with you forever. The Band's Visit rejoices in what goes on together. January 7th and 19th. It's at Kimmel Center.
Good morning, Kyle. I'm Jennifer Lynn. It is 8:20.
And researchers say reductions in blood pressure and artery stiffness were equivalent to a 4-year reduction in vascular age. Tim Church, who's a professor at the Huntington Biomedical Research Center, he was not really reviewed the training regimen and the results.
The training program was very practical, very doable. It was this slow build-up over the course of 6 months to get you to the point where basically you could survive a marathon.
These runners certainly did not set records, but they did develop new exercise routines, and their hearts appear healthier for it. Church says you don't have to take up running to get heart benefits. Cycling, rowing, swimming, or even walking at a pace that keeps you puffing can get you there too.
I always like to point towards the federal physical activity guidelines, 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity walking, or to jog 75 minutes a week.
He says the benefits begin once you get off the couch and start moving. Allison Aubrey, NPR News.
All right, we know that opioids like morphine and heroin are very dangerous. But in some parts of this country, you can buy a supplement that acts like an opioid out of a vending machine. It's an herbal product from Asia called Kratom. Leslie McClurg of KQED wondered whether it's a helpful herb or a dangerous drug.
A yellow sandwich board on a San Francisco sidewalk advertises pain relief, energy, relaxation, and mood enhancement.
We're selling a product called Kratom, or some people will call it Kratom.
That's Kratom, a Southeast Asian herb that's usually served as a green powder in capsules or tea. Linda Klein opens the door to a tiny, immaculate shop called Bumblebee Botanicals. The 33-year-old shop owner has neatly arranged Kratom in huge mason jars.
So this is one of our personal favorites. It's called the Green Malay.
Linda says the drug turned around her mental health.
I went from feeling desperate and hopeless to finding an alternative where I had full control over how I felt.
Anxiety used to paralyze her.
I would have panic attacks a lot.
A friend suggested Kratom. Linda found it at a smoke shop. Her anxiety vanished. The new habit costs about $6 a day.
It almost feels like you're having just a little glass of wine. It's really relaxing.
But there's a dark side. In 2016, the Drug Enforcement Administration threatened to ban Kratom. It's currently listed as a drug of concern. The Food and Drug Administration has recalled dozens of products tainted with salmonella and warned consumers not to use it because of the risk of addiction, and people can overdose. Mateo Martinez is still mourning the loss of his brother.